What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Sports Talk on Tap podcast. We're here. You can find daily videos Monday through Friday covering all the four major sports leagues, whether it be NFL, MLB, NBA, or NHL. We're here to talk games, news, highlights, all that fun stuff. And Nick, in today's episode, obviously, we'll get to series previews and, maybe some games from yesterday. But first, this was your idea. So, you can kind of explain it if you want to, but very interesting segment for anyone listening.
Yeah. So really what Jake and I are just going to do is, we're at the pretty much the midway point, maybe a little bit over technically, but All-Star break is kind of the midway point. And we're going to take a look at, some teams that are in the playoff race, whether it's, they're leading their division or they're in the wild card. What teams do we see that we think are not going to, be able to sustain that second half of the year? And then what teams are, maybe 2, 3, or 4 games out that we think are going to make a late push and sneak into the playoffs. So I think it's going to be fun. I've got a few teams in mind. I'm curious to see who Jake has. We'll probably have, some of the same because I know we've talked about it to a small extent. We've talked about this. So I'm curious to see. I want to hear Jake. Let's start off with the teams that are in that you think are going to fall off.
All right, so I tried to do one from each league. Obviously, the NFL or the NL National League is a lot more jumbled up, so it's a lot more confusing. But overall, I still think the Phillies, Dodgers, Brewers, and Braves are kind of firm locks. And the Cardinals have created a little bit of ground, but I'm still not in love with them. But that could be a team someone mentions. But I think the obvious pick in the NL is the Mets. They've been playing a lot better baseball in the month of June, and then into July it's carried over. But overall, part of the reason is I just don't trust the Mets down. I can't tell you, even the good teams they've had that still made the playoffs, the amount of times they kind of fall off towards the end of the year when people start believing in them in September, August is, it's kind of inevitable. There's still a huge question mark with some of the rotation pieces, some of the starting, bats. So this team is still very good. Obviously, Lindor has had a great season still, despite a slow start. I feel like this team is good, but they're just other teams that I think I trust more. I still think the Padres are more talented, and I think if they're also a team known for late season collapses as well. But I kind of it's not more so anything with the Mets because I think they've kind of been where I've expected them to be. I just expect other teams to kind of surpass them and play better in the second half of the season. That kind of been disappointing. So for that reason alone, I kind of the Mets, they've had a great story, but they still it's a shame. I don't know what happened to Jeff McNeil, but he's kind of, fallen off the face of the planet after a great, I believe it was 2022 season. So at the end of the day, I think he won the NL batting title that season.
Yeah.
If he's not getting going and he's a huge part to, their bats and what they did to make the playoffs a couple seasons ago, that's kind of concerning. And, just still some huge question marks, obviously Edwin Diaz and all that. But with that being said, the American League team that I have that I think is going to fall off out of the race, it was tough because, I still like the Yankees, Orioles, Guardians. I still like the Twins. I'm gonna, and I'm obviously never gonna pick my team to fall off. But I really don't think they will, just because I think they're still a really good team. I'm gonna go with, but Nick, the Red Sox have surprised me most of the year, so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because I really think they're better than this team. I think the Seattle Mariners are going to fall off. I think there's another team we'll talk about that will sneak in coming up. But Seattle's offense can't be this bad, 162 games, and expect to make the playoffs for me. And unless they change something at the trade deadline or make some move or some players get hot that just haven't, shown a hope of life all season, then maybe things can change. But as of right now, their pitching's done a great job to keep them in the race and in the division lead for most of the season, even though it's been a weak division. But I think, some teams are going to catch up. And if their offense just can't get anything going, this isn't a team that I can expect to make the playoffs if they are going to be this piss poor on offense. So despite the great rotation they have, because it's a shame they put it to waste. Because if you put the Mariners pitching staff with the Yankees or Baltimore's offense, this team's probably had 70 wins already in the regular season. So, it is what it is, though. But those are the two teams that I think are going to maybe fall off the playoff picture.
Okay. I'll start out in the AL because that was also my pick with the Mariners. I heavily agree that, if they don't make a move for a bat or two during the deadline, then they're not going to be able to keep this pace. And I think I'll kind of get into one of the teams I think will jump in, and that's just in their division. I think the Astros are taking off. So I think
that was my pick.
But I was going to make a few picks for teams that could sneak in just because with the Mariners being the only team from that division in, it would obviously be the second place team that jumps them. So that was kind of, I feel like one that is kind of stated within what we're saying. But I do agree. The Mariners are not playing a consistent enough type of baseball, or a sustainable type of baseball, I should call it, to the point where they can just keep doing this and they'll make the playoffs. They'll win the division because they won't. Because you need to score runs. As good as your pitching can be, you got to score runs because you can lose plenty of games, 1-0, and then you're screwed. But I'll keep the American League one short because all the points you made, I agree with, and I think are the reasons I picked that same team. So going into the NL, I did not pick the Mets. It's a very understandable pick just because it's the Mets. But another team that I just don't think plays sustainable type of baseball, I got to pick the Cardinals. They're second in the wild card right now, but I don't think they're gonna be able to sustain that even at the trade deadline if they pick up a bat, unless say Nolan Arenado just hits 350 the rest of the season and he's tearing the cover off the ball. Their pitching is great, but that can happen to any team. And I just think at a negative 38 run differential, they're the only team in the playoff race right now for either league that has a negative run differential, and it's a big one. It's not like -3 where they're just hanging around. Like it's bad. So they're winning close games and getting blown out in bad games is kind of what that tells me. And I just think that's not fully sustainable. And if it is, that doesn't work in the playoffs. You're not going to win games with negative run differential.
That's what I think about them. Because they were obviously my second choice, but I don't know. I feel like for almost a month now we've been saying this isn't sustainable, and they kind of keep increasing their lead over the Reds. It feels like teams we've talked about, even though it's not much. And I do think eventually it'll come down, but I feel like it might just be one of those situations where they just got into the wild card because of how good they were in close games, but get kind of blown out like Marlins exit style like last season in the wild card if they were to make it. So I'm not really high on them either way, but just figured,
Yeah, no, I can definitely see a potential of that happening, but it would not, like I just said, it wouldn't work in the playoffs. It would be like the Marlins last year. Everyone would call them a fluke playoff team that should have never been in. Yeah. So I just think in a 162 game season, like we talked about yesterday, who you are is going to show up no matter what. Just it's too big of a sample size for you to have a fluke type of season where we see, in the NFL, if, a team wins 3 games they weren't supposed to win, they might get in the playoffs when nobody thought they were going to be a playoff team. But that doesn't really happen in a bigger season. So the Cardinals have to be my pick. I get what you're saying where we keep saying this and they keep somehow winning these games. So, maybe they surprise us, but I'm going to stick with my gut and just say St. Louis is going to fall out later in the season. It might be right after the wild card, but that's my fall off pick. So I want to get into now. I have a few picks for each league that I think could sneak in. So I'll give you a few picks too if you want them. I don't know if you just
you already touched on my first pick, which was the Astros. It's me and you. I think we both, throughout all our 4 segments on different sports, have been big believers on. I'll believe it when I see it, and that's going to be the same thing with the Astros. Until they miss the playoffs,
right?
I'm not going to pick against them because I've done that far too many times, and they've proved me wrong every time. And the fact that they're getting hot now, I get it was a slow start, but Dusty Baker retiring, all that stuff, and just, going on 7 straight ALCS runs, it does take a toll on you. But until this team doesn't even make the playoffs, I can't pick against them until they actually do that, because they've earned the respect of others to have a slow first half if they so want to. And even with that slow first half, like we talked about, they're only 2.5 out of the wild card, and even a couple
They're
of
like
games.
they're like 2 games out of the division.
Yeah, they're like 2 games out of Seattle's spot. So it's still very, much up for grabs for the Astros. So until they, prove me wrong, I'm going to always pick them to be in the playoffs just because of the guys they got. And then also another team in the American League, got to give a shout out to, is the Kansas City Royals, because they went through a little bit of a rough patch a couple weeks ago, just a really hard schedule. I don't think they'll make the playoffs necessarily, just because they're really bad on the road for some reason compared to at home. And they're still a young team. So I think, Bobby Witt's having a career year. Salvador Perez has kind of, had a career resurgence year, even though he's been really solid. Like, this is his one of his best years since 2017 or, way earlier in his career. But with that being said, throughout a full season, I think, they're still an up-and-coming team. I think they might just get a little bit worn out in some areas. But they're only 1 game behind, the Red Sox. So I'm not ruling anything out. They could even catch the Twins if the Twins have a bad week. I'm not, going to rule the Royals out. They've been playing excellent baseball, and they've kind of recovered from that bad stretch. But overall, when you still have Bobby Witt, Salvador Perez, some up-and-coming, pitching, Seth Lugo that's had a career year. When these guys are having career years, maybe it's just destiny for this team to get into the playoffs. So, that maybe also be the case. And obviously, when you're a game out, there's always a huge possibility that you're going to make the playoffs.
Yep. So the Royals are going to be your, second pick?
Yeah, in the American League.
Okay.
And then, because you already touched on Astros. I think that was both of our number ones. So if I had to pick another team, I think it'd be the Royals, because then after that, it gets very bleak, and the next team's the Rays, and I don't think the Rays are making the playoffs. So if there were to be another team in the American League, obviously it'd be the Royals.
Okay.
Maybe if some miracle Texas gets healthy and hot, maybe that'd be my dark horse pick. But
if I'm going to get into my American League pick then, and then we can go into the National League. And if that's your dark horse pick, that's my main pick. I think the Rangers are going to take off the second half of the year. I know I did, my hypothetical trades, and Nathan Eovaldi could get dealt. I think they're going to stand pat. I really do think their owner believes in the group that they have and when they're healthy. And I think the Rangers are a good second half of the year team. I think Corey Seager is a guy who knows how to win these big games, is going to show up in these big games. So call me crazy. I think the Rangers are a team that's going to shoot up the wild card rankings. As a Red Sox fan, and honestly as a Twins fan for you, we got to hope that they're the team that wins the division, because, if they sneak in as a wild card team, that probably means they're jumping one of us. So we know the Guardians are going to make it, which means that the Twins are either going to win the division or be a wild card. And we know the Orioles.
Who knows, though? We're only 4.5 behind the Guardians now. Getting closer.
That's what I'm saying, is that if you jump the Guardians, they're still going to be a wild card team. So that's still 2 teams from the Central. There's going to be at least 2 teams from the AL East. It's going to be the Orioles, the Yankees, and hopefully the Red Sox for me. So I got to hope. So the last division is the West, which means that if the Rangers got in, they would probably jump the Red Sox unless they win the division.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I'm not feeling the Rangers. I ain't scared.
They've given you no reason to believe in them, so I get it. Yeah. But I just see them when I look at all these teams. I'm
just saying, if everything holds up, if the Red Sox hit the way they hit and the Twins have hit the way they hit, I'm not concerned. If they screw up and then the Rangers take advantage of that, props to them. But if the Red Sox and Twins played the second half baseball like they did the first half, I think there's no reason to be quite concerned with the Rangers, because at the end of the day, I I feel like last year they were actually more of a first half team, and then they kind of fell off the second half, and then were a wild card team, and then a lot of people didn't have them going far. And then they just kind of regained the momentum. So we'll see. Maybe it's the inverse. Obviously, stuff like that could happen, but I still think if the Red Sox and Twins play baseball like they did the first half and are on their winning pace like they did the first half, I don't think the Rangers will get too hot enough to be able to come back from that. But could be proven wrong.
I see what you mean. I'm not going to disagree with you.
It's not going to just be the Rangers playing really good. It's going to have to be a collapse from one of the other two.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just taking a look because I'm a big, obviously the run differential means something to me at least. But I'm going down the line of just all the teams that are out of the wild card. Tampa Bay is -65. Detroit is below them. They're -9. And then it's the Rangers, and they're +9. So they're in the plus for run differential. It's just, they got to put it all together.
Rangers are a team that I think they're better than their record shows. I just don't think they'll be quite I don't think they'll just be quite good enough to get super hot with the analytics loving them the first half. Will they be able to sustain that the second half?
Do you think is your thing like they kind of put themselves too far back to like it's too little too late kind of thing? Like you put yourself too far back. So even if
they're going to just need help. And from what I've seen from the Red Sox and from what I've seen from the Twins, I mean, obviously maybe more so the Twins are likely to, have that week where they don't win a game. But they've just been playing better baseball. And they got personally, last year, and we got to give the Rangers credit. They won it. But personally this year, I like the Twins lineup over the Rangers. I like most of the Red Sox lineup over. They're just hitting better. And, I'm going to trust that the full 162 games will trust that, even if the Rangers do get hot. But even then, when the analytics love the Ranger or, the run differential is positive, they've dug themselves deep in a hole where it's like, shit, if they play a bad week and they lose even more, now they're 10 games below 500. So, it's going to that could be a problem. But, who never knows? Maybe you're right. But that is a sleeper team just because of their experience to sneak in. And obviously winning it last year. So I like that respect.
I want to get into your NL teams too, though, because I'm very curious because I also do have I have 2 different picks.
NL is very interesting. Obviously, I think Mets and Cardinals being there that could be susceptible, but I really do believe the Diamondbacks will have a better second half of the season. Corbin Carroll, there's no way he continues this throughout a full season. I trust him to get back on track. You still have Ketel Marte, who's going to be the shining shortstop. Zach Gallen was injured part of the first half of the season. I think if he stays healthy, he's still definitely a great number 1 to have. So I think the Diamondbacks, while I don't love them, going on another magical World Series run, this team is still a playoff team, and I think they'll get hot enough in the second half of the year to prove that. And you still have a lot of dudes on this team, despite some underperforming, metrics. I think this team will get back on track and, be able to, put themselves, they're still only 1 game out despite how bad they've played, but you still have obviously Christian Walker. You got a bunch of dogs on this team. So I'm not worried come the second half that this team can make a playoff push.
Okay. For my first team, I'm going to stay same division, different team. I'm going the Padres. I know that I'm pretty high on them. I know they're hitting a bit of a skid. I think they've lost 4 in a row now. So they're kind of not helping themselves. But I still think that team has a ton of talent, and they're 1 move away from, jumping a team like the Mets or the Cardinals, whoever, is in that last place spot. Because we both know the Dodgers are a regular season team, so they're probably going to win the division, even though they just got swept by the Phillies, which was kind of crazy to see. But I think the Padres are too good of a roster in a National League that's just – I know the race is tight, but that's just because it's so full of, mid teams. I'm seeing, the Giants, who were 45 and 49. They're only 3 games out of the wild card. So it's just – I think the Padres are way better than teams like that. I think they're way better than the Cubs. They're better than the Nationals. And then, obviously, you have the Rockies and the Marlins. But I think the Padres are definitely a team that – I know they're right on the outside looking in. I think they're going to be a team that jumps either the Mets or the Cardinals late in the season.
Yeah, I love that pick. My next team is going to be a sleeper team, kind of buried, but they've been getting hot recently. I think they'll have a great second half, mainly because they've been getting a lot of unlucky blown saves, blown games in the first half. I'm going to go with the Chicago Cubs. They've obviously been one of the more disappointing teams, but I think they're kind of finding their stride now entering the All-Star break. They've actually shut out Baltimore 2 games in a row. They're on a 4-game winning streak. I think the bats are finally going to start coming around. I think the pitching, they won't blow as many games as they did the first half. Obviously, I still don't love their back-end bullpen in a close game, but I think they'll just be able to find their stride. Obviously, Imanaga is probably their only bright spot, and even despite everything that's gone wrong, this team is only 3 games out, and it wouldn't surprise me if we saw this team get red hot, go on a 10-game win streak at some point, and put themselves right in the mix. And I think this team has the ability to do that. So I'm not ruling out the Cubs because they're one of the more talented teams. They were favorites to win the NL for a reason entering the season. I think a lot of people forgot that. But I think they're finally going to start showing it. And part of it, the 162-game beauty is teams will eventually show their true colors. And this Cubs team is not a bad team. And I think they'll show that the second half of the season.
Okay. Yeah, they got a good lineup. And I do, if they make, a trade for a closer or just, a top tier reliever to, solidify that, because you're right. Like, the blown saves have been the problem for the Cubs. They should have won so many more games than they have, and just their bullpen has blown so many games that had no bit. Like, they've blown like 3-run 9th-inning leads to not good teams. So it's just that's their one problem, because I do think they have a really good lineup, and their starting pitching has been pretty solid throughout the year, especially Imanaga. Like, he's their Rookie of the Year candidate.
Great story.
But that is not my second team. My second team is the team right below them in the wild card race, the Cincinnati Reds. I think they scored too many runs, and I think they have pretty good. They have, their pitching, their runs against is below 400, which is the only team out of the wild card that is below 400 in runs against. So their pitching is showing up. It's just, their offense is very, up and down. They'll have a game where they win like 14-2, and then they'll get shut out for like 3 straight games or something crazy like that. So maybe the Reds need to add, maybe one more bat to that lineup. I don't think they need a pitcher. I think their rotation is solid enough to hold it down for the rest of the year. But you look at, I keep talking about run differential. They're 5th in the National League. Like, they're above the Mets. They're above the Cardinals. Then you look at the teams that are out of the race. They're above the Padres, the Diamondbacks, everybody. So I just think that's so crazy. Their expected win-loss, they're expected to have 50 wins by now, and they're 4 games below 500. So I think they're just playing unlucky baseball right now. And eventually, I think the hits will start falling. The runs will start scoring more consistently for the Reds. They have Ellie, who's great for baseball. Yep. He's a great player. He obviously doesn't hit for average right now, and I think that's just because he's such a young guy still. I think he's like 22, but he's going to be in the All-Star game. He'll be fun to watch. But I just think the Reds are too solid of a team compared to some of these other teams. I think they're better than the Pirates. As fun as Paul Skeens has been to watch, he had that no going for 7 innings yesterday,
and they pulled them.
I do agree with that. We can maybe get into that when we go over the scores. I do agree with them pulling him. I know a lot of people don't, but I'll wrap it up. My last pick is the Reds as a sneaky, last place wild card team. I think they're a better team than the Mets.
You've always loved the Reds.
Yep, I do like the Reds. I like how they play baseball. They're a good, young, fun team. So
yeah, I don't mind that. I'm not mad. Obviously, their analytics and run differential shows they're better than their record, but I feel like we'll see what happens though. Hopefully they can.
We've been tuning that horn for a while, so
yeah. But you never know. 162 games may come around. But with that being said, so let us know in the comments, guys, what you guys think about this. What teams you agree, disagree with, what teams you might think will fall off, or teams that you might think will sneak in. Just don't let it be the Red Sox or Twins for our own sake. But with that being said, obviously, we got a big weekend coming up. But the highlight of yesterday's baseball news was unfortunately, Altuve won't be playing in the All-Star game. So Marcus Semien will get the start. One of the worst starts I'll see from a second baseman this season. Marcus Semien, great player, not a great year though by any means. But his backup will now be Willie Castro of the Minnesota Twins. Willie Castro signed to a minor league deal with the Twins last season, and now has kind of turned himself into an all-star. Great work, Willie, and the Twins get their second all-star. And obviously, I mentioned Nick a couple episodes ago. He was the highest WAR with that wasn't the all-star game. So obviously, WARs and everything, but he's been a great player, great hitter. Been playing all different positions: second base, shortstop, outfield, even pitching a couple times. So he can do it all guy. So congrats to Willie on getting in.
This is his first All-Star game, correct?
Oh yeah, he's basically been a utility guy, like someone like that. Just remind me like Tony Kemp back in the day. But this guy, obviously, he's just been so good for the Twins. Above average hitter this season, good defender. So gotta give him his props. He's earned it. Even when Carlos Craig went out for 10 games, he was there at shortstop starting. He starts second base. Just a do-it-all guy, kind of the Josh Metellus of the NFL, who kind of played like 5 different positions. So a do-it-all guy that is helpful to a lot of teams and can just be a winning, contributing player.
Big shout out to him. Congratulations on your first All-Star. Enjoy it.
It's always good stories too.
I think, like you said, I think Marcus Semien might be the worst starting All-Star.
I think personally, Willie should start over Semien. But
I highly doubt Willie Castro's hitting 230. Like do you know what he's hitting?
Around like 270.
So
better OPS, better WAR. So yeah, I mean, second baseman's a little bit weaker after Altuve in the American League, but personally, I'd have him. I'd probably have a couple players over him. But obviously, I'll take the All. I think Willie too will just take the All-Star. Just from a minor league deal a season ago to an All-Star. Those are always great stories, no matter if it's Twins, Red Sox, a team. You love to root for the underdogs. Mm-hmm. With that being said, obviously we have some. I don't know if we want to talk real quick before we wrap this up. Some series coming up this weekend. Yankees Orioles in Baltimore. That should be a really fun series. And that big one for the wild card with the Red Sox, man. Red Sox Royals. So that'll be fun. There's a lot of playoff implications there, and we'll pull it up on the screen real quick here. But should be a great series coming up. We also have my Twins going to San Francisco for a late night series, so that'll be like the last series. I don't know how much I'll stay up to watch that, but that should be fun.
You don't want to have the Joe Ryan experience?
Yeah, it should be interesting. Maybe Cardinals, Cubs, big wild card series at Braves, Padres. So there's a lot of very good series coming up. The Texas Rangers, Houston Astros. So it'll be fun, but definitely the most series I'm keeping my eye on is Yankees, Orioles, and Royals, Red Sox. Those are the series to watch for me.
Yeah, that's in Baltimore, so I want to say it leans a little more towards Baltimore. But
2 out of 3 for Baltimore.
Divisional matchups, you never know. It can flip either way, so I'm not going to make any crazy calls. That Rangers-Astros series, I mean, if the Astros sweep that series, like we're gonna flip our talks real quick about what the Astros are as a playoff team, and I think it's going to change.
But it could also go reverse if the Rangers sweep the Astros.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
If the Rangers win 3 in a row in a division matchup and put themselves right in the wild card hunt,
then you brought it to life, and I have to blame you for the Rangers playoff hopes. But then obviously Nick, Royals, Red Sox, that should be a movie. I'm excited to watch.
That's going to be. I'm nervous for the series just because the Red Sox against.
Who's starting for the Red Sox? It says TBD.
They don't have a starter announced. It might just be a bullpen game for them because I believe one of their starters is hurt. I'm trying to remember who it is.
I really wish. I don't know if this would have been me. You pull the bullpen game yesterday against the Athletics and let Tanner Houck go today. Just an idea. I mean, but maybe it's good.
I think it was just more so like they want to keep him on his schedule Because
Oh,
I know
yeah,
that.
no, I agree. I mean, just, an idea, but, obviously you want to take advantage and win the games you can. So I don't mind it, but also would have been, it just stinks seeing that obviously the Royals got Reagan's going, who's a solid pitcher. So that should be interesting to see. But yeah, should be interesting for the Red Sox, whoever they trot out to start. But if it is a bullpen game, if they can win this one, that'd be huge.
Yeah, the Red Sox struggle mightily against lefties, so this could be a tough one for me to watch tonight. But you never know. The bullpen is rested though, because Tanner Houck went 6 innings yesterday, and then they used Chase Anderson for the last 3 because he's kind of like a cleanup guy. If it's a blowout, they just put him in for the rest of the game. So
you need those guys to just eat up innings during the regular season.
Exactly. Like those are huge for the bullpens because a day like today where you're probably going to use your bullpen a lot. So hopefully the Red Sox pitch well. Hopefully their offense can keep up because the Royals have really good pitching. But it'll be a fun series. It'll be obviously big playoff implications. So
yeah, big series coming up this weekend. But obviously, Nick, I'll be back to recap it back on Monday after these weekend series go on. So it should be fun. As always, though, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. Everyone, enjoy your weekend. Catch some baseball if you can. Big series coming up. But enjoy that, and we'll catch you next one. Peace.